Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, hello there, and keep reminding me it's not Monday. It's Monday to me. It's Tuesday, September 18th, a dreary day here in Pittsburgh. However, it's a very, very hot day in the world of political talk. And I'm sure you'd have to have done a Rip Van Winkle not to know what has occurred, and that is the outing of a surreptitious tape of Mitt Romney talking to supporters at a fundraiser at a private home in Florida, and essentially saying that 47% of Americans were moochers and that he would never get their votes and he's not going to worry about those people. 47% of Americans are part of that group that considers themselves entitled, and, you know, those would be voting for Obama anyway, so there's nothing he can do about that. Well, the breathtaking stupidity of that remark is sending, the chattering class into spasms yesterday and today, and with reason. So we want to talk about that some today. Joining me from St. Louis is my sister Susan, because it's Tuesday, it's not Monday. Hi, Susan.
Hi, I was about to go.
Oh, you were thinking I forgot about you?
Yeah.
Well, I have to admit I did, because I started talking about this, and I felt myself going into perhaps a full-blown rant, and then there was in the back of my head thinking, wait, Susan's here. So I scaled back. Here you are.
Okay, well, go ahead. You can rant away.
Well, really, I was occupied yesterday. I was not watching news. I did not see this until late last night when I happened to finally decide to check back into the world, and I was just stunned.
Well, it is. I mean, anybody that has run for public office knows the rule. You don't pay attention to the people that are for you. You don't pay attention to the people that are against you, because those votes you aren't going to change. You only focus on those votes in the vast undecideds. Those are the ones to focus your energy on. I believe that was the source of the initial thought. But what he doesn't, he forgot that you aren't supposed to demonize the ones that don't vote for you.
No, but here's what his mistake is. He's wrong. Wait. No, but he's wrong.
I vote. I'm part of the 47%, and I certainly pay my taxes.
Wait a minute. You're not part of the 47%.
The 47% that vote for that are
no. Okay,
not
that's what I want. Well, that's what I want to make clear.
Am.
You pay taxes. You pay income taxes. So you're ostensibly part of his 53%. I am too. But his thinking, this absurd thinking, that the people who pay no taxes are Democrats is absurd. I mean, he by making this statement, offended a huge hunk of Republican voters who have never been able to, maybe this will wake some of those guys up about how they're used by the Republican Party and what the Republicans really think of them. They're manipulated by the Republicans. I mean, he's talking about working class, hardworking people who don't make a ton of money, but who work. They make
right. Well,
not enough to pay.
Lynn, let me just say something. You're wrong about what he said. What he said is there are 47% of the people who will vote for the president no matter what. And those are the people that he says believe that they are victims, believe the government has a responsibility to care for them, believe they are entitled to health care, to food, to housing, you name it. That's an entitlement. And the government should give it to them, and they'll vote for the president no matter what. So that I am part of that 47%. I'm going to vote for the president no matter what.
Yes, but you're not.
That's why he's wrong, because I do pay my taxes. I am. He's just got himself all totally wrong.
What he did is he got tangled
up.
He got tangled up in Republican talking points, and they. I guess you start.
He applied them to the wrong political axiom.
The fact is that if you look, it appears that the 47% figure is, I mean, people say that no one's disputing that you can come up with that figure of people who do not pay income tax. The problem is that those people, that 47%, disproportionately live in red states.
Yeah, vote Republican.
So he's so out of it that no matter how you parse this, it's offensive. It is offensive and wrong, and he doesn't get it. Now, Ezra Klein, I think, has written the smartest thing thus far about it, which really, I think, shows how simply out of it Romney is. He doesn't. One wonders if he knows better. One wonders if he's doing what he seems to usually do, which is try desperately to please, say whatever the crowd he's in front of at the moment wants to hear. And who knows what he really thinks? Who knows? Okay, so listen, can I read something that Ezra Klein has written about this?
Sure.
Because it's wonderful. It's one of those wonderful circular things that Republicans do. For instance, Republicans squeezing government, wanting to shrink it so they can drown it in a bathtub. And as they take money from public education and take money from social programs and take money, and then they stand back and point and say, you see, it doesn't work. Government doesn't work. This is after they've hamstrung it. They've tied one hand behind its back. They've done everything they can to cripple it. And then they say, look, it doesn't work. This is the sort of brilliance, usually, of the Republican plan, right? And sort of what's happening here is the same thing, according to Klein. Okay, so he says, so Romney is arguing that about 47% of the country is a taker class that pays little or nothing into the federal government, but wants to tax those hard-working rich people so that they can continue to get their free health care, their free food, their free housing. And if you think about it, think back to the Republican primaries, and each one of those clowns would try to outdo the other with talking about the horror of these, this 47% taker, moocher, lazy bum class. But here's a quote from Paul Ryan. We're coming close to a tipping point in America where we might have a net majority of takers versus makers in society. So, these are their talking points. They want their audience to feel like they're the people who work hard. And all those other people, yes, that vote for Obama, are moochers. And you're either a taker or a maker. You're either a taker or you're a job creator. This necessity they have to see everything in these Manichaean terms, is that how you pronounce that? It's either this or it's that. Never mind that the world ain't so simple, right? This country is not made up of makers and takers. And the makers aren't all Republicans, and the takers aren't all Democrats. Even if it were. Okay.
Well, and a lot of those people that he's counting in that figure are gainfully employed.
Exactly.
And just don't owe any taxes.
That's right.
Because
Wait. That's what I'm getting to. Okay. So, Americans who paid no federal income tax, out of those who didn't last year, 61% were working really hard and paying payroll taxes and other taxes. And in fact, they paid about 15.3% of their income in taxes. That's an average, okay? They paid 15% of their income in taxes. Mitt Romney, he paid 13.9% of his income in taxes. But the guys who paid the 15, those are the takers.
Back in the very earliest years of my law career, when I worked in New York on Wall Street, quite literally, and my job was essentially to shelter the income of billionaires. And I was making like pretty close to nothing, nothing what you would think they would be paying a young lawyer, and I knew I was paying so much more in taxes because I knew what they were paying.
Yeah, like nothing.
Nothing.
Well,
I was paying such a much higher percentage
right.
of taxes.
Well,
and
because
in some cases, actually more money.
Right, because the tax laws are written to give the rich these wonderful little shelters and loopholes, and they're not written to, a working stiff like you, even with a law degree working stiff, to do the same.
Right.
But here, can I get back to Klein though? Here,
of course, I'm sorry.
No, you're not. No. I just want to get back here because you come up on he says part of the reason, and here's the gem, part of the reason, in fact, that the number of Americans who are not paying income tax has grown in the last 30 years, has grown, is because of the Republicans. This is what's so funny about it. Republicans have passed, because it's their mantra, a series of what? Tax cuts. Very large tax cuts that in fact ended up wiping out the income tax liability for all kinds of Americans, not just the rich ones, but for middle-class Americans as well. And you know why? Because when it started with Reagan, Bush, in order for them to get these tax breaks passed, they had to throw a sop or two to the takers. Here's a quote. Here's a quote from one of Bush's budget guys. Do you think we wanted to include a welfare payment to people who don't pay taxes and call it a tax cut? Of course not. But that's what we needed to do to get it done. Okay, so when you look at graphs of the percent of Americans who don't pay income taxes, you see these huge spikes after Ronald Reagan's big tax Reform Act in 86. And then you see another huge spike in 2001 and 2003, which is George W.'s tax cuts. So when you hear that like close to half of Americans don't pay any income taxes, that is directly traceable to Ronald Reagan and George Bush. They built that. So, one more thing. But now that those tax cuts have passed, this is Ezra Klein and Washington Post, and many fewer Americans are paying federal income taxes, and the rich are paying a much higher percentage of federal income taxes than they had, Republicans are arguing that these Americans, that they in fact helped free from income taxes, have become a dependent taker class. And they now expect the rich to pay their way so that they can get more social services for themselves. So the Republicans then say you have to further cut the rich, the maker classes' taxes. And you have to cut the social services that the takers are depending on. That way you roll the takers out of what they call the hammock of government, and you unleash those wonderful altruistic makers to create jobs. So Klein says, just to be clear, notice what happens here. Republicans have become outraged over the predictable effect of the tax cuts they passed and are using that outrage as the justification for more tax cuts for the rich. And they're wanting to pay for it by cutting social services for the non-rich.
I mean, it's such a disconnect from what actually happens. Is that the way you just described all of this, or he just described all of this, it's as if this 40% worth of rabble marched on Washington and took this stuff. You know, and now they're going to take it back. I mean, that's not what happens. This bunch of guys sits in Washington, D.C. and plays with our lives. And then we work with whatever, crapola they spit out.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Well, Klein's final remark is, it's not that Romney, what we now know Romney said behind closed doors, it's not that it's just impolitic. It's actually the core to the Republicans' economic agenda. That's what he laid out there. That's how they see the world. They're sure of it. He made the mistake of saying it. Go ahead. Caller, go ahead.
Todd Aiken.
Yeah.
Hey, Lynn. How are you?
I am fine. How are you? Hello?
Well, I'm not in fine voice. I'm still suffering from a cold.
But, okay, sorry.
Still greetings, salutations to you and your sister.
Thank you.
I just wanted to harken back to what you started to touch on early in the segment, which is that I don't know if Mitt Romney is aware of this, but a lot of those 40%, 7% of the population that do not pay federal income taxes are actually part of his base.
Yeah, exactly.
He has a very decided advantage, Republicans normally do, among Southern and Midwestern whites.
That's right.
With a high school education or less. And I mean, it baffles me. I don't really understand it. I suppose it all devolves to social issues. And certainly not everyone who doesn't have a college education isn't poor or even middle class. There are people who are, do quite well, or even wealthy, who are in skilled trades or start their own businesses. But as a group, they're a lower income demographic. They're part of leave aside the disabled, leave aside people on, Medicare or Social Security who don't have federal income tax liability. It doesn't even have to be low income people.
No.
I mean, you could have a household where, maybe they're in both parents work, and they make $50,000-$60,000 a piece.
They got
but if they have 4 kids
exactly.
and a home mortgage deduction,
that's right.
They may not be paying any federal income tax.
That's right, because they got the child
and
care.
And if they're white, that's part of Romney's base.
That's right.
That's part of the Republican base.
Do you think those white folks that he dissed that are
they
his
don't
base
realize.
will recognize themselves?
They don't have that awareness.
That's what I think too. They won't know. They'll be agreeing with. That's right. They wouldn't even realize. Wait a minute. I'm the person he's talking about there. How could they not realize that if they in fact did not have to file or didn't have to pay additional tax? How could they think that? But the disconnect is so huge. Okay, I think we lost him. Suze, I've got some other emails here. Let's let everybody in. Gigi writes, oh, yeah. She's saying that they've let off, Gigi is saying that there's more that has been released from the speech, and this has to do with the Middle East. And I don't know if you've heard that, but essentially Romney in that says that there's no way there's going to be peace in the Middle East. There's not a shot at it. And he's just going to sort of try to keep kicking it down the road. That he doesn't think a two-state solution will work. He doesn't think of what. He just doesn't see any hope. He doesn't believe in the peace process, and he would just postpone doing anything when he was president because, here's the quote from what he said. So what you do is you move things along the best way you can. You hope for some degree of stability, but you recognize that this is going to remain an unsolved problem. And we just kick the ball down the field and hope that ultimately somehow something will happen and resolve it. And Gigi writes, this is leadership? Now, I don't necessarily disagree with him that this seems like an unsolvable problem. I do not. But if you're going to be the president of the United States, you darn well better have some thoughts about what could be done to at least move things in the right direction, I would think. Suze, are you there? Suze?
Oh, whoops. That's my fault.
Okay, we'll get her. Ansel writes, the main issue with Romney's comments is that he's trying to say that the 47% of the people who feel victimized and entitled are the same 47% who don't pay federal income tax. But as so many reporters have pointed out, these are not the same two groups. Yeah, that's what... And some of the 47% who do pay federal income tax are actually the elderly and the rich who are already Romney supporters. That's right. No, it doesn't hold, no matter how you look at it. Suze, are you there?
Yeah.
I did not do that to you. That was done by Miss Jess. You see? You see? We're reading some emails. Dorothea writes, Lynn, I would like to see the media use these recent comments as motivation to revisit the topic of Romney's own taxes, a topic which has died out. The icing on the cake here would be to find out that Romney hasn't paid taxes himself in the last decade. Wouldn't that be? That'd be the capper.
Sure.
Yeah.
Talk about takers.
Yeah. Talk about takers. Oh, no. He's a job creator, and we know that. Okay. Oh, God. You guys. Susan, I got so many emails here. Let's get them all in.
Okay.
Ed writes, oops. Oh, he sends me an article about the fact that one problem with the Republican theory is that many big corporations don't pay income tax.
Right. Corporations are perhaps the biggest, the largest dole takers of them
Exactly.
all.
Those are the biggest entitled, hammock swinging, relying on the government largesse. Absolutely.
Some of the biggest American corporations,
General
pay
Electric,
absolutely no taxes.
GE, sixth largest corporation in the United States, earned, get this, $14.2 billion in 2010. Guess how much it paid in income tax? This is
Zero. Probably has stacked up losses.
You got it. $14.2 billion. And you paid more than they did. What's wrong with this picture? The disparity between the high taxes that many people say they believe American corporations pay and the low rate that they actually pay is extraordinary.
Well, but part of the reason is that for small business people, it's harder and harder to you can't play on the field that allows you to generate the kind of losses while still making enough of a profit to stay afloat. I mean, everybody tries to play that game a little bit, but it's a matter of scale, and the bigger you are, the easier it is to play the game.
Exactly,
surprise,
right.
Surprise.
Right. Which is another reason I often wonder why so many little, true small business people think that the Republicans are for them. Because I don't think they are. They're for the big guys.
No, because it's all about economies of scale. And if you're a, quote, little businessman or small businessman, quote, you've got the answer right in your job title.
Well, their policies will put you out of business.
Right.
Because they give so much of a head start to the big boys who will continue to squash you. I don't know. Here, Chuck writes, Romney also made a comment last week which did not get as much attention, but in an interview with George Stephanopoulos, Romney was asked how he defined the middle class. Stephanopoulos asked, is $100,000 middle income? And you know what the response was? Now, Jess just laughed at that. So you don't think $100,000 is middle income, Jess? Jess thinks that's rich.
That's rich, right.
Jess is saying,
he thought that was low.
What? And here's when, Romney's sitting there and Stephanopoulos says, so is $100,000 middle class? No, says Romney. Middle income is $200,000 to $250,000 and less, which makes no sense. $200,000 to $250,000. He thinks somebody making $250,000 a year is middle class. What world does he live in?
Can he at least say upper middle class?
Even that is, I don't know. I mean, gee whiz. I mean, to Romney, somebody making $200,000 is some poor schmuck.
It's poor. But, somebody making $200,000 with 4 kids in
Susan,
school,
spare us.
With the mortgage.
Spare us.
I'm just saying, they aren't playing on the same field as
with
the
Romney.
guys that are making $500,000 or $1 million or $5 million or $15 million.
I would
a
never
year.
waste my time worrying about anybody making $200,000, even if they have 4
you're in
kids.
Fine shape.
You're okay. You don't have to have believe me, you got enough.
You don't have to live your life. There's no reason to live your life terrified.
Oh, God. Yeah. Okay, and David Brooks just eviscerated Romney.
Well, I love David Brooks today, although, he ends just sort of with a whimper because he's so disappointed. He wants to be for his candidate.
Yeah, well, he can't. He says that Romney, what he said, suggests that he really doesn't know much about the country he inhabits. I mean, who are these freeloaders? Is it the Iraqi war veteran who goes to the VA? Is it the student getting a loan to go to college? Is it the retiree on Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid? It suggests that Romney doesn't know much about the culture of America. He says, because America remains one of the hardest working nations on earth. Americans work longer hours than just about anyone else. Americans believe in work more than almost any other people. 92% say that hard work is the key to success, according to a Pew poll. And if you think about what he and the Republicans are saying to Americans, that half of us are lazy moochers and bums. Invariably, the people they're talking about are the people who work harder. So many of them, they're the people who work 2 and 3 jobs without benefits for minimum wage, trying desperately to keep from getting their house foreclosed, who rely on public transportation and things such as that. And they're the hardest working. They're the definition of America with this, and he disses them. And then Brooks says what's true. The people who receive the disproportionate share of government spending are not big government lovers. They're Republicans. That's who gets the most. If you look at where government money goes, it goes to the red states, much more than the blue states. Those maps have been around for ages, and they're true. So figure that out. The Republicans who despise government take more than the blue states that supposedly love government. And Brooks says Romney's comments reveal that he has lost any sense of the social compact. In 1987, during Ronald Reagan's second term, 62% of Republicans believe that the government has a responsibility to help those who cannot help themselves. Wow, 2/3 of Republicans in Reagan's time thought government had a purpose, and it was to help people who could not help themselves. Now, only 40% of Republicans will agree to that. So, Susan alluded...
Well, they're going to lose the fight on this one.
Susan,
because I don't think that resonates with young people. I certainly don't think it resonates with, it's only with it. Really, the only people that like that are people that, to use this phrase, I wouldn't want to have a beer with.
Well, as he says, Romney's comment is a country club fantasy. It's what self-satisfied millionaires say to each other.
Right, and who give themselves way too much credit for having what they have.
Exactly right.
I mean, it still remains one of my favorite things that I've read, which is that Romney, or heard that Romney was born on third base and thinks he hit a triple.
Yeah. Well, I think isn't that something that Ann Richards first said about George?
Mark,
well, but that's been. I mean, I think first time I heard it was Ann Richards talking about George H.W. Bush, because I mean it's just something that happens with a lot of these rich folks. They don't understand. That's what Obama was trying to inartfully say when he said you didn't build that.
Right.
They're
forgetting.
Yeah, right.
That they don't count all of the various legs up they got.
Never. They don't even recognize
entitlement.
it. Right. They don't recognize it.
No, they don't. Their entitlements are right.
Your entitlements are wrong.
Right.
Well, unbelievable. Unbelievable. God help us if this country elects this man and gives these Republicans that much power. Because the odds are they're going to, my concern is we're going to have a Republican Congress. Hey, speaking of, how's that idiot doing in...
Well, Claire's holding on to a lead. I don't feel good about anything until we count the votes.
Yeah, I don't... my guess is he'll get elected.
There are a lot of yahoos around here that agree, I'll say it again, that agree with Aiken.
Yeah, right. Okay. We got a call. I was just going to go to a break. Hello?
Hi there, Lynn. How are you?
Fine.
I think this comment sealed the election for Obama.
Well, I hope, but it didn't help. It did not help Romney. I don't think.
No, it did not.
No, it did not. He's having a bad.
It just shows how out of touch
week.
he is of everything and everyone.
Yeah, and it underscores. It just underscores everything that the Obama campaign has been trying to say about him. This guy is a rich guy who doesn't have a clue about you and looks down his nose at you. And so
Well, I can see Obama having a field day with his statement.
yeah, he actually doesn't have to say a word. This is just this isn't going to die down anytime soon. It is not.
And I hope the American people are intelligent enough to realize all of this.
Me too. Thank you. Me
Thank
too.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
I think we are.
I don't know.
I mean, we are the American people.
What do you mean? We were just saying a moment ago with these Midwestern, white guys who.
Well, but
would they
some
recognize
people,
themselves?
For example, in my state, some people were swayed. We started out, the people that knew nothing, that managed to go through their lives without knowing who anybody is. At least they now know who the Republican is, and they might not want to vote for him.
Oy.
So there are a large number of people that can manage to keep themselves totally uninformed about what's going on. And those are the people that, that we're relying on, actually, to elect our president.
The blissfully ignorant.
The blissfully ignorant.
Wonderful. Anyone want to rethink democracy? I got to get a break in here. We'll be right back.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Get Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com now for Pittsburgh City Paper's brand new mobile app. Get the latest restaurant reviews, event listings, movie times, and of course, Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. citypapermobile.com. Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on tickets to the Science Center, History Museum, Carnegie Museums, and some of the best restaurants in Pittsburgh. This week, get 50% off admission to Wildwood Highlands and My Little Outback. bergbargains.com. Local deals, local merchants. bergbargains.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Okay. It's odd. I happen to be looking at The Week magazine. Do you ever see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a whole section here where they've pulled out a bunch of things about the poor and are they too dependent. Now, all of this stuff was written before last week, before this flap. And yet you would think that this stuff was written after Romney's remarks were made public. But they note that Michael Crowley in Time wrote that there is widespread resentment against people who receive any kind of government aid, and that's what the Republicans are constantly whipping up, even as they, of course, refuse to acknowledge the government aid that they themselves get. It's just a certain kind of government aid. And this is what Bill Clinton went after in his speech at the Democratic Convention when the Republicans are trying to denigrate the people who are the takers. And when Clinton reminded people that about 40% of all Medicaid spending goes for nursing home care for seniors who have exhausted all of their hard-earned assets. Many of them were in the middle class, but they have impoverished themselves because of our great healthcare system. And the only way they will have a roof over their head and any care in their last years is through Medicaid. The Republicans would have you believe that those old people, many, the greater generation who built America, they're takers. They're moochers. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then Colbert King in the Washington Post, he said, when I hear people complain about takers, so this is something, this taker stuff was out there last week enough that a lot of these pundits took it on. And this
this is just what they're doing. They are so divisive.
Disgusting.
There's us and there's them.
Always. Okay, and Colbert King says this. When they're talking about the takers, he said, I think of the old woman I recently saw in a supermarket checkout line. She watched anxiously as the cashier rang up her meager purchases, then handed 2 cans of soup back. She didn't have enough money. I also think of the working poor I see each morning at the bus stop, their faces drawn from fatigue as they head off to another long day of serving people who have more money. Sure, we could cut off food stamps and health care to these faceless takers, but is that the society we want? Well, it's a society a whole bunch of Republicans want. The majority of Republicans want that society.
Whose parents knew better.
Yeah. Oh, God. All right, well, unbelievable. Is this almost over? I mean, when's the election?
I don't know. I sort of just want to pull my covers over my head
I know.
come out until mid-November.
I know. Is it November 6th? I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like 7 weeks, right?
Right, and I'm probably, as soon as I'm allowed, I'm going to go vote just because I don't want. I'm in such a hurry to get it over with.
I don't think we have early voting around here. I don't think we do. We can't vote early. I mean, you can do a absentee ballot, but I don't know.
You can do an absentee ballot, and you can do it by going in person, and you just state that you aren't going to be available to vote on that day.
Yeah. Tom writes, I think that what bothers me most about Romney's comments is that they're so condescending. I'm insulted. Americans should feel insulted. Yeah, I agree with you. Because it is such a disparaging view of half of America. He just looks down, dismisses us. And what was the statement he made? I don't care about those people. It's not. I'm not
concerned.
I'm not concerned. I'm not.
And that's what I'm talking about. He was conflating all these different, things. The old saw about how you win an election. Yeah. But then he superimposes the people that are voting for him and the people that are voting against him with this economic theory that he's got.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Margaret's pointing out that Ryan got Social Security as a survivor when his father died. So Ryan was 16 years old, and he took that money and used it to put himself through college.
And he didn't have to pay it back.
No. Does that make him a taker?
Well, he's more of a taker than the poor student today who's getting a subsidized loan that he's going to have on his back for the rest of his life.
Oh, God, that is such a huge, outrageous problem.
It's really something. I mean, we're just going to have to forgive a ton of debt. I don't know what else you're going to do. You cannot expect people to carry 2 mortgages their whole life, and that's what we're asking a generation of children to do.
And this is the same generation that's coming out of their wonderful college education, heading into a job market where there aren't any.
That's right. Where your bright law school graduate is doing contract work during the day and waitressing at night.
I was with somebody yesterday who said they know of a kid who just got out of law school. I forget what the job is he's working. $10 an hour.
That's right. No, I mean I know a bunch of these kids, and the cream is still getting jobs, but everybody else.
Right.
These law firms now do contract work. So, case by case, they'll hire you on. That's why I was telling people, if you want to do law these days, be a paralegal, you'll get a full-time job.
Well, that's true. That's true.
But if you're a lawyer, you've got to put in a bunch of contract work until you get lucky and land a job. It'll happen, but it'll take 2 or 3 years.
Well, hey, your football team won, didn't it?
Yeah.
What the hell
It was
happened
an
there?
actual nail biter. I was doing my usual, it's the Rams, wandering through, doing laundry, paying no attention, and then suddenly I sort of just had to stand there and watch.
Yeah. They screwed me up. I got in a pool this year, and I had to pick all the games, and I thought, well, that's an easy one. The Rams lose. And then they won. Damn them.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. And then, of course, New England, who I detest, and I thought New England will win, so I vote, and then, of course, they lost, so I even detest them even more. The first time in my life I wanted them to win, and they lost. And who else did that to me? Oh, yeah, the Vikings. I never root for the Vikings. They got beat by Indianapolis. I'm lucky if I got one score right. I did pick the Steelers. That was right. Oh, man. Speaking of football, and far be it from me to quote George Will, but I will in this regard. Will, quote Will, because...
Even Will's upset with Romney.
Well, who wouldn't be? So this is Will, who's a big baseball fan, but not a football fan, but I love this quote. Football combines two of the worst things in American life. It is violence punctuated by committee meetings. Isn't that good?
Yeah.
That's good. I find myself not as into football this year, and I was talking to some other football-crazed friends yesterday, and they admitted they weren't either, found themselves just sort of lacking in the general bloodlust that they've always felt in the past. And you know why it is? I know why it is. It's because we're now too aware of the damage that is being done to those beautiful young men. And to watch a game and to see those hits, now when I see a hit, I can't, oh, wow! And then you think, I wonder if that person's brain is still like, jostling around inside his skull. More and more of these guys are so clearly damaged by having played this game. And I don't see how football can survive.
I don't either. And I'll tell you how I think it can survive. I think they have to get rid of all the padding.
Well, that's what Bill,
really basic padding.
Yeah, our brother
so that people
says.
understand
that's
that
right.
They aren't protected.
He says Bill has always said, the only way to save the game is to take the helmets away. Take the helmets and some of that padding and let them play this tough game. But you won't, if they're using their heads, literally, they're not going to do what they're doing now with those helmets on.
Because they've been dealt a totally false sense of safety, obviously. Doesn't do anything. And anybody that would think about it, especially with the brain stuff, I mean, one of the things that a law school education teaches you for no good reason is a little bit of medicine. And what happens when, as you were describing, when you get hit like that, your brain goes back and forth in the skull.
That's right. Bang,
and there's
bang,
no
bang.
padding externally
that
can stop the force, the physics of the blow.
Exactly right. And what we're finding out, I mean, you can't, there's one story after another. I've started avoiding reading them because they're so, they just rip your heart out, of guys who played, had wonderful careers, and they're now 40, 41, 42, and they don't know what day it is. They
get lost.
They're lost. Right. They're blithering. They just and their wives are desperately trying to care for them. They would if they. And I just read this one about some player who I didn't recognize the name, but he was just a regular, ordinary old player. And the article said if he did not have this loving wife who stuck with him, he would be some guy wandering around on the street homeless.
Right.
And he is
the old
one.
Packers that we used to see,
yes.
they had bum knees. They couldn't walk very well.
No, they were in agony.
Kept their brains.
Right. That's right.
I mean, Bart Starr's still out there running a car dealership,
Because I don't know what they...
because they weren't as well padded, because the game wasn't quite as brutal.
They paid for it in arthritis, traumatic arthritis and stuff. They were crippled, but their brains weren't screwed. And now their bodies are brutalized and their brains are mush.
Right.
And a lot of them. So how can you sit there and happily cheer this stuff?
I can't. You're watching
it's very
people
hard.
Kill themselves. Quite literally. It's no different than gladiators.
Not at all.
I really do have a problem watching it.
Okay. Well, I'm still sort of halfway there. I'm getting, and I can't, I'm telling you, maybe it's only the girls who are going to be turned off. But here's the other thing. What parent, now knowing this, would let their kid play football? Would start them out as a little kid, getting their head banged, up into high school, getting their head banged, through college, getting their head banged, and make it to the NFL to get their head finished off. What parent would want that?
Well, these kids are punished by these high school coaches. I mean, there's another story about a kid that died because the coach was putting him through 3-a-days in 105-degree weather.
I think
with no water.
See, I think some of that has gotten...
Be men.
I think some of that's gotten better, because I think, but what the hell?
Well, they supposedly have rules, but they weren't paying attention. And see, to me, a coach like that, why that guy wasn't tried for murder, I don't know. That's manslaughter.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm just going to read you something, and I got to get another break in. But I found this so true. This is by Martin Amis. He was writing in the Smithsonian. Your youth evaporates in your early 40s when you look in the mirror. And then it becomes a full-time job pretending you're not going to die. And then you accept that you will die. Then in your 50s, everything is very thin. And then suddenly you've got this huge new territory inside you, which is the past, which wasn't there before. A new source of strength. Then that may not be so gratifying to you as the 60s begin, but then I find that in your 60s, everything begins to look sort of slightly magical again. And it's imbued with a kind of leave-taking resonance, that it's not going to be around very long, this world, so it begins to look poignant and fascinating. I don't know if you agree with that, but just wanted to share it.
I'm going to go kill myself.
No, for honest to Pete. I ended on poignant and fascinating. That shouldn't make you want to kill yourself. What was that? That was a double snort. All right, we're taking a break. We'll be back.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
This is the sound of a flat-screen television hurled off a building. Now the new bike your kid wants. These are the things you could have, all cast into oblivion. Because when you throw away money on wasted electricity, you throw away everything you could have bought with it. Use Energy Star light bulbs and appliances, and you could save hundreds of dollars a year. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
Hey, if you're not a Republican, you might want to reach out and help somebody who is less fortunate, like become a tutor at the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council. Republicans, of course, wouldn't do that, I guess. Mitt Romney wouldn't do it, I don't think. I don't know. Hey, Cullen, stop politicizing this. It's ridiculous. I'm sure there's Republicans over there. Maybe. So, the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council is in need of more tutors. They teach you how to teach someone else one-on-one how to read. Some of these people know a little bit how to read, but they ain't very good at it. And they desperately want. They want it so they can get their GED. They want it so they can get a better job. They want it because it's humiliating not to be able to read. And they're motivated. What a wonderful thing to do. If you got a few hours a week, 4 hours a week is what they ask. That's the commitment. Think of the 4 hours a week you piddle away. Think about it. Maybe give them a call. Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council. It's 412-393-7600. Or you can, of course, check them out on the web at GPLC, Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council.org.
Pittsburgh City Paper's annual Fall Arts Preview is available now. Pick up one today for the most comprehensive arts, music, events listings, plus previews of the top shows and performances coming to the Burgh this fall. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Okay. Well, you didn't like my last quote, huh? Well.
No.
Okay, I got a good one. Scratching is one of nature's sweetest gratifications. Susan?
Nature is what I'm thinking. Nature is one of...
What? Scratching is one of nature's greatest, sweetest gratifications.
That's true, except not always.
What do you mean? There's nothing better than scratching an itch.
Only if there's an itch that refuses to be placated.
Oh, well, you get momentary pleasure, and then, of course, it comes back, and then, right. You can get into a nasty little circle, but, yeah, but, I mean, stop and think about it. You see, there's such pleasure in this world. Even a scratch.
Well, there is pleasure. Nothing makes me happier than a long back scratch.
Oh. Yeah. Well.
But then, in my body's perverse way, after a while of back scratching, I just get hives, and then I really itch.
Well, so you're screwed up. Who are screwed up?
The thing, getting back to Mitt, though, I mean, it's not what he says so much as that he says it so regularly. I mean, the one thing that the campaign is showing us is the character of the man over the course of the campaign, and what we see him to be is unreliable, reflexively wrong. Scary.
Not a leader.
Not a leader.
No.
Yeah, total hysteric.
A panderer. There's no there.
The only thing, a guy the guy that is most successful only in his own ambition.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing, as far as I can tell, he actually believes in.
Well, I hope what the caller said is that Americans are smart enough not to make this mistake. Good Lord.
Well, so far the polls seem to be bearing it out.
Well, I don't trust any of it. And I worry when polls show, because then Democrats sit home.
If anybody thinks that Democrats don't need to vote, this is about a presidential election. It's about Senate elections. It's about House elections. Every single step is important.
Yeah. Chris Potter's on the other. Yeah, he's making fun of me because I have my head in my hand, and that's where I'm going to stay until it's over.
You and Princess Kate.
Oh, don't bring that crap up. The poor woman. Poor woman.
Well, it was. I mean, it's just one of those, made-for-television moments when the next place she has to go is to get a something put around her neck by a topless woman.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah. The next day she's in some African village, and she and her husband are being met by two gloriously topless women, putting, chains of something around their necks. And in one picture, Kate just has her hands over her eyes. She can't help it. She's laughing. It's just, it's ridiculous.
Well, I don't know.
It should put it all in perspective for her, though.
In a way, but, if it's your breasts and you didn't want anyone to see them, I mean...
And you have a right not to
she's
expect
from a
somebody
culture,
to take your picture from half a mile away.
She's from a culture in which you don't show your breasts to strangers.
Yeah, everybody's solution is she should give up what anybody else would consider their right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it's your fault, because you're lucky.
Yeah. Barbara writes about the football. We've had this discussion before. What took you so long? I've never watched a game, and likely never will. Love your show and you and Susan. Thank you very much, Barbara, but I will watch more games. That's the thing.
You remember when
I'm like
when
a person
my son was little and we were talking about playing football, and I asked him if he wanted to play, and he said, no, a kid could get hurt that way.
This is true. Yeah, I'm sort of like it's where I am on vegetarianism. I mean, I understand totally, and I don't.
And past the steak.
Yeah, I'm just I'm just not as capable. But Barbara, you weren't born in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I mean, you're born with a football. The first thing they do is they give you a football in the neonatal,
and then they push you down.
Yeah, and then they tackle you.
And then they laugh.
Oh, dear. Okay. I don't know, Suze. I got nothing else.
Well, good, because it's exactly 11 o'clock.
It is. Mm-hmm. And I didn't tell you I had a bumpy ride in today where I wasn't paying attention, and I all of a sudden thought, well, I sort of know when my bus is at the right stop. You just sort of instinctively know. I've been doing it for years. And I thought, this is it. And I looked up, and right in front of me, because I was right in front of one of the big glass doors, is a 7-foot bloody fetus. Yeah. Right there. And I Wah! And the 7-foot picture of a bloody fetus was being held by this little old lady. And I thought, well, wait a minute, because I know where the bloody fetus usually is. It's in front of the Planned Parenthood, but my bus doesn't go there. But it did. So I knew I was in trouble, and the bus kept going and going and going and getting further and further and further from here. And it was raining. And I felt like I was imprisoned. And there were 7-foot bloody fetuses around. It was a terrifying morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. Okay. Bye, Suze. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. And bye to the rest of you. And what I found out is that Smithfield was blocked off, which is where it would have turned, because of a demonstration. Some of those entitled, dirty protest types, Democrats all, who are protesting in front of the PennDOT office. I think probably the voter ID thing. That's my guess. Oh, so anyway, tomorrow, Chris Botta, and I shall probably spend that hour with my head in my hands, too. And if he does as well, it's going to be a very odd show. Have a good day. Talk at you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.